Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of OT Cyber Apps brought to you by Veracity Industrial Networks. Today, we are talking with Adam Jongewaard of Interstates Electric. He's a senior systems engineer, and I think it'll be better to let Adam, you can introduce yourself briefly.
Yeah, so I'm Adam Jongewaard. It's one of our senior operational technology, infrastructure, and security analysts within Interstates. So I have been with Interstates for about 7 years and have done everything from virtualization to networks to storage to you name it, greenfield sites, new installs, retrofits, upgrades to existing environments with pretty much every one of our customers that we have, and a few oddballs off on the side that we don't do a lot of business with. So
pretty much been there, done that sort of a thing.
Been there, done that. And I mean, even from an IT perspective, I was in the IT sector before I was with Interstates doing the OT side. So I've been in banking, education, insurance, you name it. And here I am in manufacturing, and this is where I've been for 7 years, and I don't see any reason to move right now, so we're good.
Nice. I don't know about you, but I love seeing things be built.
Oh yeah,
watching the manufacturing process is just fascinating to me.
It is an exciting thing to be able to see. Too bad exactly. All those non-competes make sure that you can't take pictures of anything. So
yeah, I've actually been at OEMs where they have separate sections of the buildings to build machines for competing customers, and they don't even have crossover personnel at there. So, yep. But we're off on a tangent already. And so Interstates is one of our business partners at Veracity. You are one of the sort of deployment and installation arms for Veracity Industrial Networks. But can you tell me a little bit about what Interstates does, who Interstates is, that sort of a thing?
Yeah, so Interstates is really known for a lot of our industrial electrical construction and some of our automation and controls design for manufacturing networks, and then the implementation of those as well. But we also do a significant amount of network design, implementation, and support, along with a lot of the other compute aspects from a manufacturing perspective for a bunch of production critical industrial control systems vendors and manufacturers. So we kind of work in multiple sectors, a lot of value added ag or agricultural, biofuels, seed oil, oil and gas, a lot of consumer packaged goods, pet foods, food and beverage. And then more recently, we've been doing some stuff with water and wastewater utilities and some co-location data centers. But it's a pretty broad group of sectors that we're in, but that's kind of where our focus area is for the most part, and kind of what we do. So and we do have within my group our operational technology. We've been doing OT for over 15 years now within many of those sectors as well. So we kind of have an understanding of the importance of protecting that manufacturing critical processes, the uptime, productivity, et cetera. So
okay, all right, nice. So the relationship between Veracity and Interstates is a couple of years old. Can you talk a little bit about what interested in Interstates in Veracity Industrial Networks?
Yeah, Veracity's NetOptics software-defined network solution is kind of at the forefront of the network management and security. We have a cybersecurity group within our OTIS group as well. And so we've seen a lot of the numbers on cyber attacks. We've talked to the manufacturers and the industries we serve, as well as plant engineers and management more broadly, how painful attacks like that can be to them, both from a management and productivity perspective, as well as from an actual manufacturing perspective. It's just really, really critical for them to maintain that uptime and be able to protect themselves. And we wanted to be able to offer kind of a leading solution to help those clients stave off some of the cyber attacks, both from external bad actors as well as some of the unintentional things that may happen from accidental problems within a plant from an internal personnel perspective. So that's kind of what initiated the interest, and looking at that with Veracity just as a specifically OT focused solution, whereas most of the current software defined network solutions are kind of IT focused, right? They're not really looking at that OT sector. So that's a lot of where the initial interest came in. And we think that Veracity's got a really unique solution for that OT market. So it solves a lot of concerns for our customers, gives us a lot of protection from a cybersecurity perspective, gives us a lot of asset inventory so we can actually see all of the assets that we have on those OT networks. And we can do a lot of protection of obsolete components that, in manufacturing, they tend to run behind when it comes to a software perspective and their hardware perspective. They are 10 plus years old in some cases, just as far as the equipment and the software that they're using, and the price or the cost that it would take for them to be able to upgrade in real time to meet some of these concerns is just too hard to maintain over a long period of time. So this SDN solution kind of helps us a little bit with protecting against some of those particular challenges. So
okay. Well, I guess we touched on it a little bit, but what are you hearing from the market as far as trends in OT cybersecurity? What's going on right now? I'm assuming that the conflict in Europe has kicked it up a little bit, and a lot of the bills and President Biden and the government around cybersecurity. But what's your sort of boots on the ground take from the manufacturing side?
I mean, one of the bigger trends has been a lot of more about network isolation, right? So when we started this 15 plus years ago, it was enough that a manufacturer was able to protect its OT network, or its OT network was even protected by the fact that it wasn't on Ethernet. It wasn't running on your typical data networks, right? So those isolated networks were really completely, totally isolated from anything that you might have connecting in from the internet. But with adding Ethernet to a lot of different manufacturers' protocols, you've got your Profinet, Ethernet IP, some of those things, that adds a new vector, a new threat vector for attacks to those systems. So we're talking about isolation a lot, and seeing a lot of customers focusing on even isolating within their own environment or in their own company, isolating the IT from the OT. So we have IT on one side, we've got a firewall, and we're trying to protect all of the OT. So a lot of that has been important. In a lot of those cases, you can actually completely isolate the two. At least early on, you were able to isolate the two, but now with this need for more data, where data analytics is king, we start seeing a huge request for, we need to be able to see what's in OT. We need to be able to get to that for support, for data analytics, for any number of different reasons. So you have to start opening up that isolation, and you can't isolate it as much as you would really want to. So we're seeing a number of different concepts for being able to isolate that, including the concept of zero trust, or only allowing known good traffic on your OT network. There's more than just buzz going on about it. We have a number of customers that are actually looking at that in depth, in being able to isolate down to a line level or a process level. So we have customers that have been working with us to understand the specific plant cyber risks for designing and implementing solutions like that, to still allow for that data exchange while also protecting their manufacturing process. And they're there are still a lot of customers who haven't been working with us. Well, sorry, back up. There are a number of integrators who are still working with manufacturers, and they're installing flat networks. So they'll install a skid within a network with very little protection or control over what can actually communicate with that skid. And we think that it's critical for our customers that we work with that we kind of help them understand and try and protect against some of those threats that are out there. So
this, I guess, ties in a little bit of the question I was going to ask next is, what types of problems are you being hired to solve? But I mean, when you see those types of systems, does the customer then bring you in and ask you, okay, this is what I have, can you make it better? I mean, is that a very typical thing, or?
Yep. So a lot of that comes in in the form of like audits and stuff. So we'll do a lot of cybersecurity audits within the networks, helping to identify weak spots, helping to see where improvements can be made. But there are a number of other areas too that we're being asked to help, in the area of patching production servers and workstations to protect against vulnerabilities. There's been a whole lot more renewed interest in kind of that, looking at more backup solutions so that when you do have a problem, you can easily restore to known good production state to reduce that downtime. So it's little things like that. Obviously, the audits for baselining any issues, and then doing the design stuff for zero trust. We've been doing quite a bit more of that. And in a traditional non-software defined network design, that is really hard, because then it does become managing multiple ACLs down at the line level, or you're managing multiple firewalls at any number of different points within the network to try and isolate as much of that east-west traffic as possible, which in that traditional network is really not ever been a focus. And it's becoming more of a focus easily. So unfortunately,
when you walk in, go on.
I was just going to say, fortunately, NetOptics kind of gives us that power, so we can kind of solve some of those problems. The smart managed switches from a central level to the improved network visibility. We allow for a lot of that flexibility that the clients need, while also still isolating those networks and allowing only the known good traffic. So, sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, that's fine. That's fine. I guess when you walk into these customer networks, are they just kind of a mess when you get there, or that need to be cleaned up, or I guess, what do you walk into when you go there?
There's a variety. So we do run into some customers that do a pretty good job overall of engineering their networks, and things are kept relatively clean. Many times those are, I would call them mid-sized customers, right? So they're big enough to have kind of a central group that is really concerned about the engineering and the architecture, and yet it's small enough of an environment that they can maintain it themselves very easily. When you get to the really small customers, they often just don't have the experience or the manpower to be able to do anything with it. And so it is a lot of Netgear switches sitting in panels that really shouldn't be used. It is a lot of non-industrial equipment that's being used, and it's being managed basically when there's a fire, right? So if there's a problem, we'll manage it. As long as everything's working, we're going to leave it alone. We don't want to touch it. And then you get into some of the bigger customers, and it's really best guess. You'll have a lot of things that they really want to do right, but the purse strings are closed pretty tight higher up. So it's harder to get some of that money to do some of those improvements that you really, really should be doing, but they can't necessarily justify it from an OpEx standpoint. So It's a broad variety of different networks that we look at. Yes, some of them are terrible. Some of them are a giant mess. Some of them look like they've just had stuff slapped in and added on as they went. Nobody really engineered or did anything with it. And others actually look really, really good from, a standard network perspective. So
really, you never know what you're going to walk into, is what you're saying.
No, absolutely, you don't.
Okay. Okay. So what types of customer problems that you're seeing as a trend that you feel that the NetOptics solution can help with?
So one of the problems that I kind of mentioned before is that struggle on the part of the manufacturers and the vendors to stay up to date with operating system updates and hardware updates to match the security posture for those items in their industrial control systems from a software and hardware perspective. So we've got a lot of technology lagging, like I said, 10 plus years, that it just costs too much to update. So from a NetOptics perspective, that helps us, because while we still recommend and highly encourage patching, antivirus, and some of those things, in certain areas where it's just not possible, or it's not possible to do on a regular basis, at least we can isolate what is being talked to on those systems that can't be updated. Or we can say, okay, system A only gets to talk to system B and nothing else. And that's something that NetOptics lets us do, from a nice centralized point of view. And it's just not something that you can do with your traditional network. So that's probably one of the bigger ones, is what I would say.
Okay. All right. So where do you see cybersecurity industrial networking moving to in the future? Do you look into the looking glass?
I mean, I think we'll see an even bigger push for zero trust network design moving into the future. Just especially with the increase in cyber attacks from various threat vectors, I think we're going to see a greater push for that defense in depth. So your layering of your firewalls, you're securing the network with software-defined networking or whatever, including intrusion detection, intrusion prevention solutions, patching for stuff beyond Windows, a lot of edge compute solutions. So running things in containers. So you remove the threat vector of the operating system because we're running it in a container, and the container is going to be far less vulnerable. That's some of the bigger areas. There's going to be a lot more pressure on that IT-OT convergence. So increasing demand for visibility on what's in the network. So giving that asset inventory perspective. And then, following corporate cybersecurity initiatives, driving down to the OT layer. So at this point in time, a lot of manufacturers, cybersecurity really stops at the OT network. And they are focused on policies and procedures that apply to the IT side, less so to the OT side. And I see that probably having a big shift here in the very near future. It's already happening in a lot of places, but I think it's only going to become more important, and it's going to get pushed down even further. So those are the big ones.
Okay. All right. No, that sounds good. So we're starting to get close on time. Is there anything else you want to add?
I hadn't honestly even thought about this. So I mean, what I like about what Veracity has to offer is just that it is an alternative OT solution for software-defined networking that you can't find really anywhere else. And that focus on the OT networks is not something you get from the IT software-defined networking. There's a lot more focus on the actual communication protocols for programmable logic controllers, for any of that controls specific communication. And just being able to have that visibility into everything down below in your OT networks is critical. So I'm excited to see, what other new advances get added, what other development happens within it. It's fun being a partner that we get to see a lot of this cool stuff up front, even in development before we start rolling stuff out. So yeah, I'm excited to see where we go from here.
Yeah, me too. Interstate's feedback has been invaluable to us. You guys have been a truly valuable partner to us. So, well, I'm going to wrap it up. If you want to learn a little bit more about Interstates, you can go into visit interstates.com. If you want to learn more about Veracity, it's veracity.io. But Adam, I really appreciate the time. Thank you, Interstates, for joining us and giving us a little bit of your time.
Yeah, for sure.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.